Well, here we are in New York after an 8-year campaign to get road safety properly on the international agenda, and it's with wonderful sense of excitement that we've seen the UN General Assembly vote in favour of a decade of action up till 2020. It's exceeded our expectations.
The decade of action is obviously something that's very, very important. It's a roadmap forward in terms of our ability to solve these problems.
A decade of action is a giant step towards the eventual creation of safe roads all over the world.
I feel that 10 years from now, what has happened in road safety in the last few years might become a case study. The FIA Foundation, who played a very important role in mobilizing many of those actors, in funding many of the efforts, and the Global Commission for Road Safety, who, with the Make Road Safe campaign, served as a very active platform for advocacy.
The attractive thing about a decade of action like this is it creates a framework for action in very specific, measurable areas. I think the most important framework that exists within this decade is to build on what we call the systems approach, which is to try and integrate safety across what road users do, what the vehicles that people use can do, and what the roads do. The WHO's leadership in the UN has been very important. The World Bank's leadership amongst the network of development agencies has been very important. All of this constituency we've helped to try and bring together, and in a sense that's a unique contribution that the FIA Foundation can do. We're a kind of catalyst to collaboration, I suppose. But also we've managed to bring in some powerful personalities who demonstrate particular leadership. Lord Robertson, a distinguished international statesman with a tremendous background in government in the UK and then as NATO Secretary General.
Some of the leadership that we've seen has been very impressive. Lord Robertson, for example, who's really the impetus behind the Make Roads Safe campaign, has done extraordinary things. We really look to him to try to convince other leaders out there about the importance of bringing this to their own communities and their own countries.
More on the advocacy side, just fantastic contribution from Michelle Yeoh, who agreed to go on a journey with us around the world, exploring the reality of road injury. Many of us, we watch some of these documentary filmmakers and think, what a wonderful life, they're travelling around the world, going to all these exotic locations. Well, Michelle did that, but it wasn't exotic locations, it was horrific locations. It was seeing what goes on in an accident and emergency unit. It was meeting relatives who've been bereaved and dealing with all the emotional intensity of that and learning about the realities of road injury. But she's become really the best advocate, the best ambassador, just because of her experience and what she can take from that and convey to us. Of course, the pinnacle of all of that is to be chosen, as Michelle was, to represent her country as the representative of Malaysia in a debate in the UN General Assembly, to speak to the whole of the world, all the world's nations gathered there in the UN. It's a very historic forum to be speaking to in any occasion, but to be doing it as the ambassador for the Make Road Safe campaign, drawing on all her experience, to be representing her country, which is actually doing a lot of pioneering work on road safety, is fantastic to see. And I think all of us feel that she's been our star ambassador, star player in the Make Road Safe campaign, and we were very honoured and delighted that she was able to speak to the UN. But to do so with such passion and commitment.
I remember 2 years ago when I first came to the United Nations. It was a very exciting trip, and at the same time it was a disappointing trip, because I remember at that time when I looked out at the Great Hall, many of the seats were empty. Many of the seats were unoccupied. Was it to say that the road safety issue was not on the top agenda? And it has been a long journey since then, where together with the FIA Foundation, together with the World Bank, the WHO, with the Russian Federation, with Sultanate of Oman, with many key people who have been relentlessly working hard to ensure that the priority of road safety became a great issue that we all needed to look at, to tend to. And from the Moscow first ever ministerial level meeting last year, 2009 in November, to today here at the United Nations, I was absolutely delighted that the room was almost full. And that goes to show that road safety has become a priority.